So you're Square Enix. You just bought the franchise rights to have this Avengers video game. But it's not making money. In fact, it's quite the opposite. In fact, you lost quite a bit of money. I find that funny. It's Marvel's Avengers. What happened, Weekend? Ore wa koko ni. Let's figure it out. Let's look at the footage that I have.
Carlton's here?
What? What's with this shaking? I have never had this problem with any game recording I've had before. I got some helpful comments on Twitter, which may shed light on the subject. Maybe your brain was so immersed in the epicness of the game that you didn't notice the screen was shaking. Game looked bad from the start. The game's so broke, it actually creates bugs on other programs in your system. Capture program, settings. It does look strange, like it's jumping between frames. Maybe whatever you're using to record was having trouble hooking into the game properly. Maybe it's something related to FPS or VertSync. Alex, very legit. It looks like some sort of frame prediction extrapolation. Only happens on movement. Similar to how TVs make 24 FPS content to run at 60 Hz. You might want to look into this. I don't know which capture software you're using and which setting corresponds to this. This is weird, guys, because honestly, like I said earlier, I have to emphasize this. This is the first time that it has happened. But I will look into this forum post that Alex sent. Thank you, Alex. Every single step Hulk takes, the screen shakes. Realistic. Yeah, that's probably it. Maybe this was a beta thing, right? The footage I recorded was during the open beta.
Isn't all the footage you have gonna be beta footage? You fucking beta. You fucking beta. Cuck.
Shut up, Jay. Since there's a problem with the footage, I'll just re-record the demo. Oh. I uninstalled it. Let me re-download it. Oh right, this is the beta. Wouldn't it be funny if the game doesn't run after I install? Well, so we're stuck with the footage that I managed to record. It's weird as shit. So what I'll do is I'll just put another game in the background, one that accurately reflects what I want in my looter RPGs. This is a personal peeve I have with the looter RPG right now, at least in the AAA area of looter RPGs. One big problem that these games have, the story-driven loot RPG, or slurpadurpagi, is that they have a lot of costs to craft or attempt to craft a compelling story. Emphasis on the attempt.
Suit up!
Like there's a story part in the game where we have these two individuals as part of the team.
Oh, steady, Faye. None of us come out of this alive without our cipher.
Stay safe out there. Remember, we're a team. I'm right there with you.
And the game acknowledges that you're a newbie. So you're new to this whole team scenario?
Okay, freelancer. You might be new, but you won't be here if you didn't show promise.
And as the player, you don't really give a fuck about any of these characters because this is literally the first time you've been with them. After the intro, you don't really meet these guys until later in the game.
Faye and I have 2 years of research and legwork on this. And you want what? Jump in the end and claim credit?
Halleck.
It's quite possible that there was a falling out after the disastrous first mission tutorial part, but as the player, we don't really see what happened, so we can't really emotionally connect with these characters.
What a rush! I'd say we really took it to the Dominion back there, right? And I think we'll agree that I was pretty fantastic.
Oh, are you serious? That was a disaster.
This is a problem with Anthem's storytelling in general. You don't really see the story unfolding. You are told what you're supposed to feel by the characters, their exposition dumps. Either that or they're quirky.
Sentinel, good to see you again.
Is it?
Isn't it?
I don't associate much with freelancers.
Okay.
Or anyone not a sentinel, really.
Well, I hope you don't regret getting to know one of us.
Yes, me too.
So what's next?
Nothing. You said one job.
No, I didn't.
Going back to these two, by the end of the game, they're buddies with the player character again. But since the story failed to make me care about their relationship and even see the building up and the breakdown of it, I really felt nothing. Relating this to Marvel's Avengers, it looks like the story focused on Miss Marvel rather than telling a concrete story about every Avenger.
I think it's absolutely insane that Kamala is actually going to be in one of the biggest Marvel games that we've done.
She's a very recent addition to the Marvel Universe. She was only invented, gosh, about 6 years ago.
So you choose this recently made character to be the focal point of your video game. When I think the smarter play would have been to use like a Marvel Cinematic Universe character to be the main focus of your video game. Make them Iron Man. The normies love that shit. This is the easiest play. Do you not like money? I have a suggestion, and this might shock you.
Avengers!
Just let the player pick a character they want to play as, or just let them have a team they can control, and let them fight villains in some sort of generic doomsday plot. Just make the gameplay good. That's all you really need in a looter RPG. I have to be clear about this. I am not saying you can't put a quality story in a looter RPG. The go-to example that I keep getting is Borderlands 2, and I haven't finished it. I only reached until you meet the Phoenix and you rescue the leader of the Resistance. I forget his name right now. But for the AAA Slurpa-Derpagees I have played, the story doesn't seem that good. And while I haven't finished Marvel's Avengers, I only played the beta. From what I see, the whole story doesn't seem that good because the setup is literally fanfiction tier.
She is essentially just a little fangirl, right? She's a nerd. She loves the Marvel Universe. She lives in the Marvel Universe.
Her fan fiction comic is selected for the Avengers celebration.
Can you imagine this setup? She's an IRL fangirl in the Avengers universe that somehow gets powers on the day the Avengers broke up.
I was like, bam! Your history, buddy!
Come on.
I know I don't focus.
Hey, I saw and I thought you were awesome.
Thanks!
Yeah, you were kind of awesome.
Don't tell me she figures out an obvious clue from the villain, who shouldn't be even leaving clues, by the way.
Scour the earth. You will not find our lab.
That somehow the genius level IQs in the team don't realize
The lab's not on Earth.
I'm not following.
I'll be fair and say that our lead character has another clue that clarifies things. But the way the villain says it is so obvious.
Scour the earth. You will not find our lab.
Scour the earth? Who talks like that? Is this some sort of fantasy RPG suddenly? The hint could not be more telegraphed if it was like in big capital letters. I waited for her to twirl her mustache and go, it's like that puzzle in Lord of the Rings. You'll never guess. From what I've seen with the gameplay cinematics, it looks like a mediocre story. And the worst thing about it is that every character unlocks depending on where you are at the story. So by the time you unlock every Avenger, you're at the end of the story. Their idea was that you could actually play through these characters after the main story campaign. This is the part of the looter RPG where you have an endgame. The endgame for old RPGs of this caliber was that you just defeat the final boss and then go on to the next difficulty. And then, after that, you do that shit all over again until you could go to the highest difficulty. I don't think you could do that with these Slurpa-Derpagees because I don't think anyone wants to play through the story that they witnessed all over again. You watch cinematics all over again, the same fucking cinematic that you just played 20 hours for. The strength of Diablo and all those old games was just you just got on with it. You have to make a dedicated endgame area for your highly leveled players. The thing is, I don't think they have that endgame content. That's why people are leaving. People just want a fun way to farm their loot. But what Marvel's Avengers did for their game was just make it boring. From what I read, it looks like the endgame is just farming an area that has repeated enemies. for several floors, which is always a great experience, isn't it? At least in Diablo and Torchlight, the areas differ when you transition. The developers can't even do that. Oh yeah, this is just the intro part in Torchlight 2, okay? That's why the dungeon isn't moving. Just as a heads up, people might complain. That's a problem Anthem had with its endgame. By the time people finished the main story, there were only like 3 raid dungeons, and people were just farming one because it was the shortest. And if you don't have an endgame for your player base, people are just gonna leave. But a mediocre story and lack of endgame is the least of Marvel's Avengers worries.
This is the perfect moment that summarizes how I feel about Marvel's Avengers.
Marvel's Avengers, bugs, issues, and other known problems.
And I'm hearing reports of people who are buying microtransactions to either purchase cosmetic items or skip battle passes. They are experiencing an issue where items that players have earned or bought straight up just get locked out.
The game crashes extremely regularly. I've had at least 10 crashes during my 50 hours with it.
How to fix Marvel Avengers stuck on loading screen issues, PS4.
There are a lot of glitchy transitions from gameplay to cutscene, or from cutscene to gameplay, or even from gameplay to gameplay.
House call mission can't be completed. Infrequent infinite loading screens.
Somewhat related to this is the fact that enemies often fall through the world. When this happens, you have to reload the last checkpoint even though you've probably spent 10 minutes clearing the room.
The bugs in this game are so bad. I think SkillUp made a tweet which said that the players that initially bought and played Avengers were bug testers for it. It's so crazy. This is the reason why Avengers is not winning. You released a buggy game that has no endgame. And it has, from what I could tell, an okay to mediocre story. It might even be bad if I really bothered to look into it. 5k likes and I buy and play Avengers. So next time, here's some advice, Square Enix. First, take the L. Secondly, either make a game that has a really good story and mediocre gameplay, or has mediocre story and great gameplay, or do both. A bad game with a shit story. That's it. You suck, Square Enix. But my audience, you're pretty great.